On July 8, 1947, the U.S. Army claimed to have found a flying saucer.
I have to believe this was something from another civilization.
But within hours, they retracted the statement. 60 years later, the debate is still raging.
We truly are dealing with something off the planet.
It's right out of a 1950s science fiction movie.
Did the U.S. military recover extraterrestrials and their spaceship?
He had some dead aliens out there.
If true, the U.S. government has kept one of the greatest secrets in history, that we are not alone in the universe.
It's the most important story of the millennium.
If not, a footnote has become a legend.
Broadcasting live from the dark and cold dungeons deep beneath the KLAV studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. Prepare yourselves to be taken away into another dimension, as we now have control over your thoughts, fears, and perspective of the unexplained world you dare not speak of. With your hosts, Lindsay Knight and Michael Knight. Ladies and gentlemen, we now open the gates to the paranormal and beyond.
Broadcasting live from the KLAV studios in Las Vegas, Nevada, this is the Paranormal and Beyond. In 1947, on a ranch near Roswell, New Mexico, an airborne unidentified object would crash, starting the biggest and most infamous UFO case and cover-up in history. Although the crash is attributed to a U.S. military surveillance balloon by the U.S. government, the most famous explanation of what occurred is that the object was a spacecraft containing extraterrestrial life. Since the late 1970s, the Roswell incident has been the subject of much controversy. Straight ahead, world-renowned nuclear physicist and the original civilian investigator to the Roswell crash itself, Stan Friedman, will be joining us on the program to discuss his discoveries as well as his insights into the possible government cover-up. So get ready for Stan Friedman and Roswell when we return right here on the Talk of Las Vegas, KLAV 1230 AM.
Your ticket to the unknown is at Knight'sParanormalResearchSociety.com. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, hauntings, mysterious places, and more can be found at Knight'sParanormalResearchSociety.com. Knights with a K, ParanormalResearchSociety.com. Based out of Las Vegas, Nevada, Knights Paranormal Research Society is owned and operated by the renowned brother and sister team of Michael and Lindsay Knight. Seeing is believing. And at Knight'sParanormalResearchSociety.com, you're going to believe. Join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight, for the Paranormal and Beyond. Join host Michael Knight and Lindsay Knight as they investigate the unexplained and most controversial mysteries of the world. The Paranormal and Beyond, where the paranormal lives on and conspiracies exposed. The Paranormal and Beyond, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight. Brought to you by Knight'sParanormalResearchSociety.com.
Just because you've seen it in the news doesn't mean it's real.
So you're telling me you got physically attacked by a ghost?
Like I can tell you right now, I believe in the paranormal more than I believe in our government.
There are so many mysteries out there that are still yet to be explained.
You folks have some of your facts wrong, and you just keep talking about generalities.
With all due respect, sir, you have not brought anything to the table to prove us wrong.
This is the Paranormal and Beyond, and it's your show. Call us at 731-1230. Here again, Michael Knight and Lindsay Knight.
Welcome Welcome back to another brand new edition of the Paranormal Beyond. But first, be sure to check us out at Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com, where you can link up to all the past shows by simply clicking on that archive link above. That's Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com. Ever dreamed of being an actor? Well, you can by acting right now by logging on to HollywoodBoundActingAcademy.com. Once again, that's HollywoodBoundActingAcademy.com. Special shout out to all those listening online through the KLAV1230am.com website, and all those driving around in your cars in the Vegas Valley tuning to us through your stereos. God bless each and every one of you. I'm your host, Michael Knight. Alongside of me is your hostess, Lindsay Knight, your radio vigilantes for the rest of the night as we sing you a lullaby all about space and extraterrestrial life. How you doing, Lindsay?
Doing well, Mike. How you doing?
I am doing great. Once again, my throat is hoarse. Could be the weather or it could be me running earlier today. Standing by is Stan Friedman. We're going to get into the whole Roswell incident, and this, by far, is considered the Godfather of Ufology. Stan Friedman will be joining us shortly, but let's get into the news.
Topping the news for the Paranormal and Beyond this Friday, November 1st, giving you up-to-the-minute news on the strange and bizarre happenings around the globe. Have the homeless become nothing less than exotic specimens to be observed in their natural environment? Is that how a homeless man could lie dead on the street for a day while people took photos but no one could bring themselves to call the cops? In a testament to the attractiveness of the spectacle at the expense of dignity, sensitivity, and common humanity comes a story out of Houston, Texas, where hundreds of workers and passerbys trekked past a half-naked homeless man laying pantless, dead in the street, but they did not just walk on past, oblivious to the half-naked body. No, as the New York Daily News reported, people paraded past Big Eye for an entire day, many taking the time to snap photos of the man, capturing images of the partially naked corpse on their cell phones. But they didn't call the police. No, how could this happen? It is common and known as the bystander effect, an individual and collective psychological social phenomenon where people refuse to offer aid to a victim where there are others around. If they just had used their cell phones to make a call instead of a picture, perhaps this man could still be alive today. Sergeant Brian Harris of the Houston Police Department told KHOU in Houston, "I would like to say our city is better than that. I know our city is better than that. Apparently it is not." Police say that the homeless man known as Big Guy was passed by and photographed for at least 20 hours. Most simply thought that the man was sleeping. Still, one passerby even placed a sweater over the body, not knowing that the man was dead. It is believed that the homeless man died of natural causes. Sad, sad news. Reporting the news for the Paranormal and Beyond, I am Lindsay Knight.
Somebody should have handed that guy without pants some necro pants.
I didn't even know there was such a thing called bystander effect.
Well, if he had some necro pants and put some, change into the pockets of, I'm not even going to say it and go there, but you know what I'm talking about, he would have made money and been warm this cold coming up winter, I would say. All right, let's get into our main topic, which is Roswell. Our special guest, Stan Friedman, received his Bachelor's of Science and Master's of Science degrees in physics from the University of Chicago in 1955 and in 1956. He was employed for 14 years as a nuclear physicist by such companies as GE, GM, Westinghouse, TRW Systems, Aerojet General Nucleonics, and McDonnell Douglas, working in such highly advanced classified programs such as nuclear aircrafts, fissions and fusion rockets, and various compact nuclear power plants for space and terrestrial applications. He became interested in UFOs in 1958 and since 1967 has lectured about them at more than 600 colleges and 100 professional groups in the 50 United States, including 10 in Canada provinces and 18 other countries, in addition to various nuclear consulting efforts. He has published more than 90 UFO papers and has appeared on hundreds of radio and TV programs, including The Larry King Show in 2007 and twice in 2008. He has also appeared on many televised documentaries. He is the original civilian investigator for the Roswell incident and had co-authored Crash That Corona, the definitive study of Roswell incident. Stan Friedman was presented with a Lifetime UFO Achievement Award in Leeds in England in 2002 by UFO Magazine of the UK. He has spoken at more MUFON symposia than anyone else. The Paranormal and Beyond would like to welcome all the way from Canada to the program, Stanton Friedman. How you doing, Stan? Yeah, you got to get the applause, buddy.
Well, I'm doing great here in beautiful Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, 73 miles of downtown Holton, Maine, the mysterious corner of the United States.
You know, let me ask you this, starting off, because, you know, you're so, God, into UFOs, you know, and you're so close to it. Have you ever came close to actually, like, meeting one yourself?
Well, no. The closest I came, I was being interviewed with Kathleen Marden, my co-author on Captured, the Betty and Barney Hill UFO incident, and Science Was Wrong. We were in darkness in New Hampshire, not far from where that abduction took place. We're on a hillside, and it's dark, and a dirt road, and a cameraman is looking up at us and filming us, and suddenly says, "What's that behind you?" That doesn't happen during interviews, you know that. But, so we turn around, and, hey, what is that up there? There's some light, and then over to the right of that, another light, and then another one, about 4 or 5 of them. I don't know what it was, and we talked about it, and they filmed us back to the camera looking up at this stuff, and we eventually decided the MUFON men in New Hampshire did some investigating and found that it was probably National Guard guys from Vermont dropping battlefield flares. We're not talking flares you put on the road when you have an automobile accident. You know, we're talking something to light the field so you can kill people. That's what it boils down to, and photograph them. And the funny thing is, when we got back to the hotel, 2 women there said, "Hey, we got to talk to you. We saw something earlier today that was really strange," and they sketched it and looked exactly like what we saw. So that's about as close as I've come. I've talked to loads of people who have seen UFOs, but, you know, you mentioned the bystander effect. One of the things I found, I very often, after my lectures, ask my audiences, how many people here believe they've seen what I would consider to be a flying saucer? And they've just heard a lecture, flying saucers are real, or flying saucers in science. And I stress, look, just raise your hand. We're not asking for names. We didn't let the CIA come in, etc. And the hands go up just barely over the heads. Each one fearfully is the only one. And I point and count. One, point. And by the time I get to the far right, 10% of the people believe they have seen one. However, bystander effect. How many of you reported what you saw? 90% of the hands go down. 1 in 10 reported it. The rest didn't. And when they come to my table and I sign a book, and they got to tell me their story, because they know I'm not going to laugh. They tell me their story, and I'll say, "Did you report the sighting that you had?" No. Why not? They'd think I was some kind of a nut. That's a little different than doing something about a body laying on the street in Houston, but it's the same idea. You don't want to get involved. You're fearful of what will happen. What will it do to you, your reputation? Keep your nose out of other people's business. All these old lines.
But don't you think that's what's happening with society today? People are, they don't want to get involved.
I do. Yes, I do. And, I enjoy being on the stage. I'm a true Leo. I don't mind sticking my neck out. And incidentally, in over 700 lectures, I've only had 11 hecklers, and 2 of them were drunk. And I'm told you'll get that many if you talk about sports, religion, politics. I don't talk about those things, of course, but, that's the way it is. So, yes, in our society, we think several times before getting involved. If it's our kids that are being attacked by somebody, we'll get involved. But otherwise, no, we're all separatists, I guess. And so, I'm not a psychiatrist, although, frankly, I wish I knew one who would do a good study of the will not to believe on the part of what I call the ancient academics and fossilized physicists, the people with lots of degrees after their name, who stand up and say utterly stupid things about flying saucers. I don't know what they're protecting, their own reputation, or if this is true and they don't know about it, that means they know less than they think they do, whatever the reasons. But I think it would be nice to find out why some well-educated people say stupid things about a subject about which they know nothing. I keep running across there are basically four basic reasons for debunkers, four rules that they operate by. What the public doesn't know, I'm not going to tell them. If you can't attack the data, attack the people. It's easier. Do your research by proclamation. Investigation is too much trouble.
Absolutely, Stan. Stan, we already have a caller for you. We have Mark Zersau on the line. We'd like to speak with you. Mark, Mark, you're on the program.
Okay, and Mr. Friedman, after hearing while I was waiting on air, I am in full agreement with you. I mean, attack the messenger, dare not investigate and, think outside the box and think for yourself. Yeah. And I'm in full agreement, Mr. Friedman. I mean, again, and I hate to throw a monkey, forgive me, I don't mean to throw a monkey wrench, but at the same time, concerning UFOs in Roswell, let us bear in mind Jack Parsons and such, also, who were big into, the Satanism and the occult and so on and so forth. And let us not forget Werner von Braun and the escaped Nazis that the U.S. government helped to relocate and take their technology to start up the Cold War and possibly use the technology for UFOs. Let us not also forget the possibility, going down the occult road, using, like the black arts and supposedly, I can't swear to this, Jack Parsons and Lindsay Michael, in that little book that I gave you by Brother Michael Diamond, how supposedly they claim to, I can't swear to it, that maybe opened a hole to another dimension or a portal into hell or what have you, but there's that aspect to look to too. Extraterrestrial, I'm not too sure about, but maybe interdimensional, Mr. Friedman. And again, I'm not trying to throw a monkey wrench. I'm on your side.
No, I understand what you're saying. One of the things that's important here, and I worked on a lot of far-out stuff, nuclear airplanes and so forth, one of the things is that we often fail to realize we don't know all there is to know. My basic mantra is that technological progress comes from doing things differently in an unpredictable way. The future is not an extrapolation of the past. We want it to be. It's so much easier if it's just more of the same. But take a look at a laser. They've been around for a little over 50 years. It's not a better light bulb. Entirely different physics. And almost the great discoveries, say, since 1900 have dealt with things that you couldn't see, which gave you problems. Viruses, bacteria, gamma rays, neutrons, protons. They're there, but you can't see them. And meteors from the sky? Come on, there are no rocks in the sky. How could a rock be coming down from the sky? So it's a failure to open up to what's new. Looking back to what's old is so much easier. We should be able to explain it by what we already know. And yet, the future is different from the past. Look at the Internet, for example. If you had told somebody in 1947 that billions, and it is literally billions of people, would be able to be connected with each other instantly from all over the world, they'd say, lock this guy up.
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
I would have thought you were crazy. I was like, what are you talking about, really?
Yeah, you get the point. And so one of my goals, partly because I've been lucky, I worked on far-out stuff. And not small programs. The public doesn't seem to be aware of the fact that back in 1958, for example, a long time ago, I was working on nuclear airplanes for General Electric Aircraft Nuclear Propulsion Department. Now, was it a small group of professors and grad students? Heck no. We spent $100 million that year. We employed 3,500 people, of whom 1,100 were engineers and scientists. And most people would say, what do you mean nuclear airplanes? No such animal. Well, we spent a lot of money researching that. And it's true. I worked on fission nuclear rockets. You got fission and fusion, two nice nuclear ways of producing a heck of a lot of energy. And, you know, you can get a sense of how weird it is when you get into advanced technology. When you look at a big bomb in 1944, it was a 10-ton blockbuster, produced the energy of 10 tons of TNT, made a big hole in the ground, and they were dropped all over Europe. Now, okay, the next year, our first atomic bomb, wholly different ball game, about 17,000 tons of TNT energy release. And you proceed a little bit, that was 1945. 1952, our first fusion device, nuclear fusion, H-bombs, 10 million tons of TNT. So in less than 10 years, you go from 10 tons of TNT to 10 million tons. And the Russians, a few years later, set one off that was 57 million tons of TNT in the energy that was released.
That's a lot
of boom. Those are incredible. That's a lot of boom. And it's not just a little more than that 10-ton blockbuster. What I'm trying to say is that we need to recognize that things like transistors aren't just small vacuum tubes. You know, that we've come to understand things we didn't understand before. And one of my pet peeves, because I also worked on a study of fusion rockets, every astronomer knows, if you push them a little bit, that almost all the energy in the universe is produced by nuclear fusion. That's what goes on in the stars. Not just our star, the sun, or the stars in our galaxy, but galaxies and galaxies, billions of them, each of them with billions of stars. Nuclear fusion. And yet, you can't get the astronomers to look at fusion for propulsion. I worked on a study of fusion propulsion in 1961. Aerojet General Nucleonics, and it was headed by the guy who headed the fusion work at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. But they don't want to look at that. We have academia over here thinking the only research that gets done is what gets done at universities. You mentioned Roswell earlier. I've had two different scientists tell me, Stan, if a saucer had crashed at Roswell, they would have to have pulled half the physicists in the country away from colleges to find out more, and I just laughed my head off. How utterly ridiculous. You've got Los Alamos National Lab. It had about 7,000 people working there. You got Sandia National Lab. You got Livermore. There are all kinds of people with high-level security clearances and great competence to whom the government would go if you recovered the wreckage of something strange, weird, different. But the academic world doesn't want to look at that. I had somebody say that, Stan, if a saucer crashed at Roswell, there'd have been an article in the Physical Review, that's the Bible of the American Physical Society, if you will, within a month. That's not how the world works, the real world. And this business about you can't cover up truth. Right now, I'm in the midst of writing. I write a monthly column for the MUFON Journal, and I'm writing one on Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, outstanding astronomer, head of the Hayden Planetarium. He's got all kinds of honorary degrees. He shows up on television all the time, has written loads of books and stuff like that. And in a public lecture at Penn State University, he stated that the proof that the government can't keep secrets is how much we know about President Clinton's genitalia. Very funny remark. What's it got to do with the question of governments keeping secrets? Absolutely nothing. Can governments keep secrets? Well, they developed the stealth aircraft, Lockheed, not at a university, $10 billion in 10 years in secret. The first spy satellite that the United States put up after 12 failures that were done in secret, the Corona spy satellite, 1960, got more data about Soviet military installations than all the U-2 flights that had preceded it. Did we make a big noise? Hey, look what we've learned. The first public discussion about the Corona spy satellite was 1995, 35 years later. And the United States isn't the only one that keeps secrets. At Bletchley Park in England, during the war, we broke the German code, the Enigma machines and all that stuff. Very important to the war effort. It doesn't give you another gun, but it's sure nice to know where the other guy's airplanes are going to fly and stuff like that. There were 12,000 people there. Not a small group. Decoding, and they had to intercept German communications. That was easy. Then decoding, which was tough. And then translating, which was easy. And then carefully distributing to people who had a need to know. You couldn't let the Germans know that you'd broken the code, because then they'd change it and you're tough out of luck. 12,000 people. There wasn't one word in public about that incredible feat until 25 years after the war was over. That's keeping secrets. So that's one of the many things that aggravates me, having been involved in keeping secrets, having been to 20 archives, some of them many times.
As we're progressing in time, obviously the technology gets better and better. Are you saying that we are obviously getting help from an unknown source that we,
No.
Okay.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying anybody out there is, there are aliens out there, and no, I don't know their names, but no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we are clever people. If you want to spend the money and you go to industry to get it spent, you will sometimes have great accomplishments. Many programs are canceled without getting where you want to go. I mentioned nuclear airplanes. We didn't fly one. We ran all kinds of tests on the ground. The fission rockets we did operate, you want to be impressed. Los Alamos, that lab out there, not too far from you guys, in New Mexico, they operated in 1969. They operated the Phoebus 2B nuclear rocket propulsion system. It was less than 8 feet in diameter. Liquid hydrogen comes in very, very cold, goes out very, very hot. Operated at a power level of 4,400 megawatts. The power level of Grand Coulee Dam is 2,200 megawatts, and it's a little bit larger than 8 feet in diameter. It takes people, takes money, takes effort, but all kinds of progress has been made in many different directions, and sometimes we don't know it. Why should we tell our enemies what we're doing? Why should we make it easy for the other guy? So, no, I'm not saying aliens are saying, hey, guys, we know you need a little help. And it's funny. One of the other psychological aspects of this problem is, why would aliens come here? Why don't they land on the White House lawn? I've been asked that. I'm serious. And I try to point out, in my book, Flying Saucers and Science, I give more than 20 reasons for coming to planet Earth. They're grad students doing their thesis work on the development of a primitive society, or better yet, radio broadcasters of the weekly show, Idiocy in the Boondocks.
Right.
But I think the big reason for coming here, and brushing aside all the peripheral ones, is to make sure we don't go out there. We are a threat to the neighborhood. We don't like to think of ourselves that way, but here's a couple of numbers that should disturb people. In World War II, we killed 50 million of our own kind. 50 million Earthlings died in the war. We destroyed 1,700 cities. We are not nice guys. Last year, over the past 12 months, we spent approximately $1 trillion on things military, and yet thousands of children die every single day of preventable disease or starvation. If you were an alien, would you want us out there? And that raises the key question.
God, no.
You understand, then. Is there any chance of our getting out there? Yes. There were several things that told visiting aliens that these idiots are going to be bothering us if we let them. One is nuclear weapons. The genie's out of the bottle, as somebody once said. A second is powerful rockets being used to kill people. Some people thought V-2s would be useful for delivering mail. Well, they're used for delivering terrible stuff to the people on the other end.
Hate mail.
Oh, good line. I like that. And the third thing would be powerful radar, the beginning of the electronics age. Didn't happen until just before World War II was the start. Now, isn't it amazing? There's only one place on the entire planet in 1947, July, where it could study all three of those technologies. Southeastern New Mexico, which is where Roswell is. First nuclear explosion, Trinity site, on the grounds of the White Sands Missile Range, biggest military base in the United States. That's where we were firing the captured German V-2s. And that's where we had our best radar, because I hate to say it, but sometimes the rockets went the wrong way. They went south instead of north. The Mexicans weren't very happy about that. And admittedly, I had an English astronomer very haughtily say on a television program, well, they could have gone to the Soviet Union. No, they hadn't tested their first A-bomb until 1949. So what I'm saying is if you stand back and look, we're the scourge of the neighborhood. We let people die, kids starve, and we're out killing people. From an external viewpoint, does that make any sense?
That makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, it's like opening up the prisons for a free-for-all. That would bother a lot of sane people out there if there's any left. Well,
we learned after Pearl Harbor that you better not get caught with your pants down. And part of that was the negative attitude of major scientists. A little story. The guy who, Billy Mitchell, was a pilot in World War I. And after the war, he was saying that we've revolutionized warfare. We're going to have airplanes seeking ships. Secretary of the Navy said, I'll stand on the deck of any ship. He thinks he's going to sink with an airplane. Ha! And he was court-martialed, incidentally. Well, fast forward to 1941, November 29th. The Army-Navy game, football game, and in the program it had a picture of the USS Arizona, huge battleship, very powerful. And in the text it said, nobody's ever sunk a battleship from the sky. 8 days later was Pearl Harbor. The USS Arizona was sunk, killing 1,100 people who were on board. The Japanese knew you could sink a battleship from the sky. But we were so smart we knew that couldn't be. We weren't ready for it. So what I'm saying, life is full of these strange attitudes and actions, which in retrospect look awful darn foolish. And, when I go back to Dr. Tyson, for example, he also has said that, the notion of getting to other star systems is ridiculous. After all, he's an astronomer. He knows about the sky and stars and so forth. On a television program in which I got 20 seconds and he got a few minutes, this is the Peter Jennings mockumentary of 2005, February 24th. He pointed out that our fastest craft would take 70,000 years to get to the nearest star, and scientists want their data faster than that. Ha ha. The only trouble is there's no propulsion system on that spacecraft. It's coasting. It's like trying to tell me that, if you throw a bottle in the ocean, you can determine how long it would take to sail across the ocean, or let off a balloon. That'll tell you how long it takes to fly. Or look backwards. How long does it take to go around planet Earth? Well, Magellan's ship went around. It took 3 years. Isn't that a good measure? Well, no. The space station does it in 90 minutes. It doesn't have big sails on it, though, incidentally. But, the whole question of propulsion, you can't get here from there. That's the word from on high. That's nonsense. You can get here from there. Yes, it's going to cost you some money, and you're not going to use a chemical rocket. That doesn't mean it can't be done. That progress comes from doing things differently again. So we have the whole astronomical community patting themselves on the back. No secrets can be kept, not from them, of course. And there is no technology that would get us to the stars. And I've had people say, look how much energy it would take to get to Andromeda. You know what? I don't care. Andromeda's 2 million light years away. That's a galaxy. I'm interested in Zeta Reticuli, 39 light years away. Just down the street. That comes from the Betty and Barney Hill case in the book Captured. star map and so forth, and I was the first to publish about that. 39 light years is a much different target than 2 million light years. And so, it's frustrating. There's plenty of material. I mean, I'm going to be 80 next year, and I'm sure I won't run out of stupid things being said about UFOs and the government and technology and all that sort of stuff. And, don't ask me why they don't talk to the astronomers. I know, because the astronomers don't know anything and won't talk back sensibly.
Stan, I got to ask you, what got you interested into the Roswell crash back in 47?
Well, I wasn't interested in 1947 in the Roswell crash. In 1978, early in the 70s, a colleague and I in California talked to a forest ranger about his UFO sighting. We were living in California. And when we finished, it was a good case. He said, you really ought to talk to my mom in New Mexico. She had a great sighting. So I called his mom, and she told me about her sighting, and somehow it came up that when she was working at this radio station in Albuquerque, their affiliate in Roswell had called and wanted her to put a new story on the wire. There was no news wire down in Roswell. And he was dictating the story, and a bell goes off, and do not continue this transmission. He was talking about a crash saucer that was going to be sent to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And so she says to him, this is on the phone, what should I do? And he said, discontinue the transmission. You can understand the government would be monitoring all kinds of stuff in New Mexico because of all the classified work going on there. You don't want the wrong stuff to get out. I checked on that case. I talked to several people, didn't get very far, and I sort of put it on the shelf. And then in 1978, I was in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, to speak at Louisiana State University, and was supposed to do 3 interviews at a television station in town. The university had people take me to the station. I'd done 2 of them. The third reporter was nowhere to be found. And the station manager, he knew I had other things to do, and he's looking at his watch, and he's giving me coffee. And out of the blue, he says, the guy you ought to talk to is Jesse Marcel. And brilliant investigator that I am, I said, who's he? And his next sentence changed my life. He handled the wreckage of one of those saucers you're interested in when he was in the military. What? Where'd that come from? He lives in Houma. We're old ham radio buddies. You ought to talk to him. I was busy the rest of the day because the reporter did show up and we did the interview, and I was doing other things. The next day from the airport, I called information, got a number for Jesse Marceau, and he told me his story. And people say, why did he talk to you, Stan? Because he's one of the few people who couldn't deny his involvement. I found out later, of course, that his name was in newspapers, his picture was in newspapers. He could hardly say, oh, no, I had nothing to do with that. But I followed up, shared the information with Bill Moore. We located 62 people in conjunction with that Roswell event. In the next year and a half, the first book came out in 1980, the Roswell incident. We kept looking for people. By 1986, it was 92 people. I started the Unsolved Mysteries program, instigated, I guess you could say. And that was seen by 27 million people in 1989 and 30 million people the next year. And witnesses came forward, and a whole industry has been built up. And I don't even get a cut of the take. Millions of visitors to Roswell. And it seems poetic justice. The base at Roswell, and nobody tells you this from the negative side, the Roswell Army Airfield was the home of the most elite military group in the entire world, the 509th. They are the ones who dropped the atomic bombs on Japan. They are the ones who dropped 2 more bombs in Operation Crossroads in 1946. Hand-picked officers, hand-picked men. It wasn't a bunch of dinks with nothing to do but sit around and make up stories. And the base got closed, would you believe, in the mid-'60s because New Mexico didn't vote for Lyndon Johnson in the 1964 election. So he closed the base, moved it to, of all places, Texas. Johnson's home base, of course. And so it's poetic justice. The closure of the base was devastating to the town. At 25,000 people, lots of them worked out at the base and so forth. Great. It has a 13,000-foot runway, which is huge. So now they're collecting from people who come and visit because of the government's cover-up. Serves the government right, as far as I'm concerned.
So that's your conclusion of the whole thing. A spaceship was recovered and alien bodies also?
Yeah, we didn't hear about the alien bodies first time around. Jesse Marcel said he never saw anything about bodies. But people, as the word got out, we got people talking to us. And, there's an effect here. If one witness comes forward, maybe a second one will come forward. And he gets treated fairly, and a third one, and so forth. So there have been a number of researchers go down there and, dig into things. And I just, within the past week, heard from somebody whose father died more than 10 years ago, served at the base, and I checked the base yearbook. He indeed was there. And his son tells me that he was suffering from PTSD because he helped recover the bodies. And I just heard this within the past week, would you believe? Verify that the guy was at the base. Sometimes people tell me they were at the base, or their father or grandfather, whatever, was at the base, and I checked the yearbook. Wasn't there. Sorry about that. So we got to be careful. So I'm still getting stories, and I mention that because if people go to my website, www.stantonfriedman.com, they can see how to get in touch with me. I'm still looking for more witnesses because I'm convinced that there are pieces of the wreckage in somebody's bureau drawer. And the guy may be gone, but the family doesn't know what it's there. But what's this piece of metal sitting here? I'd sure like one of those pieces of metal.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you, you're an expert in, ufology and all that. What is your take on the Battle of Los Angeles? I mean, do you think that really took place with, UFOs?
Well, there's no question that in 1942 the country was, to say the least, nervous about being attacked on either ocean. I know I lived in New Jersey, and we were waiting for the Germans to lob shells into the oil refinery in the small town where I lived in Linden and start one heck of a fire. So the coastal batteries were nervous, and they spotted something strange in the sky, and they started firing away with their anti-aircraft guns. And apparently they didn't down one. Some people were hurt by the shells that landed. So I don't make it into a great event, but it was an event that concerned the government. You don't want people to panic, and you don't want them to be spending all their energy worrying about somebody attacking if we got bigger fish to fry, so to speak. So, yeah, there were shells fired. There was even a photograph showing something up there. War is hell, and people were caught up in the throes of what the heck is going on here. We had aircraft raids. It wasn't duck and cover. Isn't that what they teach the kids?
Yeah, in school.
We had air raid sirens going off. We had your lights on your cars had to be painted across the upper half. Gasoline rationing. The war was real, and you were worried about it, justifiably. And we found out after the war, incidentally, there was a lot more threatening activity off the coast of New Jersey than the public had been told during the war. Within 2 weeks of the start of World War II, there was a director of censorship appointed to make sure the press didn't say things the government didn't want them to say. One was, don't use the word uranium, incidentally. The Japanese were launching Fugo balloons from the West Coast, off the West Coast, with bombs on board, and they fly across and supposed to start fires and kill people. And you couldn't say anything about whether they did or didn't work. We didn't want to give the Japanese any comfort. One went off, killed some people, but what I'm saying is it's not surprising. Loose lips sink ships. It's true. It definitely is true.
Do you think, Stan, from the Roswell crash, the spaceship recovered, was that back engineered? And the 80s boom in technology, you think that had something to do with it?
No, I don't. Well, a little tiny bit, if you will. Look, people have been back engineering crashed vehicles for a long time. World War II, if a German fighter crashed in England without blowing up, we were there to check on the technology, what metals were used, what were the tolerances. Oh, look what they're doing here, how clever. And the Germans certainly looked at American or English planes that were on the ground. So I'm sure we tried. But again, people don't seem to have any idea of how much money was spent because of the Cold War. As I mentioned, $100 million in 1958 at GE. $100 million is a lot of money in 1958. And that wasn't even a black program. That is, its existence was known. Lots of the atomic bomb project, the Manhattan Project. You realize we built a mile-long facility, literally a mile long, to separate isotopes of uranium, and we used 5% of the electric power being produced in the United States to do that, to pump a uranium-based gas through tiny little holes on nickel sheets from one end to the other. 5% of the electric power of the United States, all done in secret. And so what I'm saying is if you spend enough money and hire enough smart people, you're going to turn up with new technology. Now, I will say this. One of the things that makes a technology project more likely to succeed is knowing what you're trying to accomplish can be done. The Russians, after the war, knew that you could build atomic bombs. The United States had set off 5 of them. The Germans, during the war, had an atomic bomb project, but they didn't know you could build them. Is it worth the effort? They knew you could build rockets, so they spent most of their research and development money on building bigger and better rockets. So I think we learned something. There's a picture of me in my book, Flying Saucers and Science, with my hand on the Apollo 12 command module. I gave a talk to the NASA group there in Southern California. They took me around, took my picture, etc. And what's interesting is it's a round, blunt body. But I always thought, and many other people did too, a high-speed craft in the atmosphere has got to have a pointy nose, sharp wings, highly streamlined. Here's a darn old round, blunt body. Well, it turns out they did wind tunnel tests on round, blunt bodies. I think somebody said, hey, if it works for them, let's see whether it really does work. And it did. And so I'm not saying we haven't learned anything, but I don't think that's what inspired all the developments that were made. It was good, hard work from smart people spending lots of taxpayer dollars.
So do you think that we today, government alone, and as far as some black ops secret programs out there, are working in conjunction with extraterrestrial life as we speak?
I have no reason to say we are. I can't prove we're not, obviously. But, do they pay Social Security? I mean,
That's a good point. I don't think they would be working for the government, right?
Well, yeah, I can't imagine them working for the government. And, there's another part of this. Some people say, well, Stan, if we recovered a flying saucer, why aren't we building our own? If you gave Christopher Columbus a nuclear submarine, hey, Chris, you've done a great job, a whole new continent. I got a little problem here. Here's a nuclear submarine. I need 2 more. Money is no object. Could he have built one? Not a chance. Not a chance.
Good point.
And so the fact that you have a piece of really exotic stuff doesn't mean you can duplicate it. You may learn from it. And let me give you a specific example. Remember, they didn't recover an intact flying saucer at Roswell. It's a bunch of pieces, a debris field, lots of little stuff. Foil-like materials, very strong, very strange. You could crumple them up and they'd uncrumple on their own, which is neat, if you will. But that is not the same as recovering, the manual and the craft. As a specific example, you'd send this stuff out to labs, secret labs, highly talented people. You don't tell them where you got it. It's none of their business. They don't have a need to know. And you say, what is this stuff? And the guy says, it's a combination of 2 elements, samarium and cobalt. Why would you put those together? Not your problem. You send it out to other people. Tell me the magnetic, electrical, thermal properties of this weird stuff. Again, you don't tell them where you got it. Maybe he thinks you got it from the Russian spies. Who knows? Anyway, and the guy comes back and says, I don't know what this stuff is, but measure the highest magnetic field. highest magnetic moment of any material I've ever tested to make a great permanent magnet. And that's what's used in ghetto blasters, incidentally. And I'm doing a radio program. I used to do a weekly science commentary here in Fredericton, New Brunswick. And I'm reading about new and better permanent magnets. And at the end of the article, it says the original work on samarium cobalt was done at, of all places, Wright Air Development Center. That's Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. And I just laughed my head off. We know that's where the wreckage from Roswell went. So we may have learned something. But knowing how an atom bomb works, for example, doesn't give you the isotopes you need to build one. And if anything crazy takes 2 pounds of unobtainium, and you don't know how to make unobtainium, you're in trouble. You got to go down a different path.
Stan, throughout your whole history in ufology and the investigation, what is the most definitive thing that you can tell us that you've learned or uncovered?
Well, I've uncovered that there is indeed a cosmic Watergate, and I'd be happy to show somebody who doesn't think there is, the National Security Agency, you know, the Snowden guys.
Yeah, we know him.
NSA used to mean never, no such agency, never says anything. Anyway, the NSA released, because of a Freedom of Information suit, way back when, they released 156 top secret Umbra documents about UFOs. The only trouble is you can read one sentence per page. Everything else is whited out. The CIA released, again because of pressure, blacked out top secret Umbra UFO documents. That's their terminology. And you can read, 6 words a page, stuff like that. We have a statement from an Air Force general who was asked, what should we do about Project Blue Book, ostensibly the only group concerned with UFOs, is back in 1969. And Carol Bolander, Air Force general, put out a memo, which we didn't see until 10 years later, you understand. But it led to the closure of Project Blue Book. And in this memo, he says, reports of UFOs which could affect national security are not part of the Blue Book system.
Interesting.
And that's an incredible statement, since we've been told by the Air Force all this time that Blue Book was it. I talked to General Bolander. I don't know of anybody else who has. He's dead now, unfortunately. And I said, it sounds like you're talking about, there are 2 separate channels of communication here. Those sightings that could affect national security, and the humdum, you're standing at the end of your driveway and a saucer flies over, big deal. But what if a saucer goes down the runway at a Strategic Air Command base where there are nuclear weapons stored? That is a national security problem. And he agreed with me.
Stan, we are about to be out of time. What is your website where people can contact you and read more of your material and pick up your literature at?
My books and my DVDs, yes.
Everything.
Boy, does time run by so fast.
www.stantonfriedman.com. There are articles to read, books to read, strong statements, even a little humor from time to time, because I poke fun at the nasty, noisy negativist.
And there's a lot out there.
Yes.
We commend you on your research when it comes to ufology, and thank you for being on the program.
My pleasure.
Stan,
good morning.
Good morning to you, too. Everything you say, there's such a broad range to you. So, definitely have to go to your website, everybody out there, and read your books, because Stan Friedman, everything you say is absolutely amazing.
All right. And also, thank you, Mark Zersow, for your call. And join us back here Monday as we have Mystic Uri Geller on the program to talk about his life in the public eye and his abilities when we return right here back Monday on the Paranormal Beyond. Everybody out there, enjoy your weekend and stay safe.